Jonathan Turley with us, George Washington University law professor. Jonathan, then what will we get? If you had to make a gut call on it, what do you suspect we'll get?
Well, we're going to get a heavily redacted affidavit if this follows the past practices of the Justice Department. The Justice Department is notorious for over-redactions and over-classifications to serve tactical purposes. I've been in cases where both of those problems have appeared, where judges have agreed that the Justice Department has over-redacted material. The concern I have is that the judge does not appear to have pushed back. He's suggesting that the government got it just right. He doesn't have any area where he's saying, look, I still think you need to explore this section or that section. The point is that anyone familiar with affidavits knows that you can release parts of an affidavit without compromising an investigation or confidential informants, just because that's how affidavits are written. There are legal sections, there are factual sections that are already known to the target. So many of us said all along, and the judge agreed with this, that parts of this affidavit could be released.
So what I wonder, it seems like a broad range of issues that would prevent a lot of this from ever coming out at all. Forget about the information of people who haven't been charged and those who might have been there, any sense of identifying them. It goes on to include the information strategy, direction, scope, sources, and methods, any grand jury information. I mean, that is a wide umbrella, isn't it? And really limits just how much the judge will allow shared to the public.
Well, that's the concern, because the government just was in front of this judge saying, we don't think a single word should be released in a redacted affidavit. And then the judge said, well, that's sort of odd. I think there's a public interest here that has to be recognized. You go back and suggest redactions to me. That same party comes back and the judge says, all right, I have no further areas that I want to contest. The assumption is that there is going to be plenty of redacted material where the judge could have said, you need to explain this one to me, why we can't be a little more transparent. But we're still going to get something, and that is a lot. I mean, because it's not common for affidavits to be released before charges or convictions. And so we have to be grateful for that, but we also be leery what we're going to get. Even the legal sections may tell us something. This was an overbroad search. I think that this judge made a mistake in signing off on this language. It had all of the nuance and selectivity of a cyclone. And we may see in the legal material what they were saying they had probable cause of and why they had to justify such an open-ended search.
All right, so if he has appeared to accept some of these requested cuts, I guess back to your point, we just don't know how many. So if we're looking at finding the least onerous alternative to sealing the entire affidavit, but so much of it is redacted that it has sort of, like we were touching on this before, the Mueller information that first was released to the public that was, and we're showing it now, that was almost entirely blacked out. Obviously, that's going to cause even more consternation, right? There are obviously going to be people who will say, including the former president himself, well, what good does this do now?
Well, I think this is going to be a test of leadership. I've written about that all week for Merrick Garland. He had to go to the Department of Justice and say, look, we have to go outside our comfort zone. We've got to go outside our usual practices. This is a serious time for this country, how divided we are, how angry people are, how distrustful people are. And Garland went in front of the public and basically said, how dare you question the integrity of the FBI and the Department of Justice? Well, he was ignoring the recent history of the FBI misleading courts, filing false information. That doesn't mean that they're doing it here. It doesn't mean this raid was not justified. But it should put the onus on the Attorney General to be more transparent. But some of us are still skeptical. I was in the area when I was doing the Area 51 case. This department argued that even a fact on the cover of the New York Times could be classified and withheld. That's the culture at the Justice Department. So saying that they got it just right leaves me a little bit concerned.
Now, stepping back from all of this is the same judge who approved and wrote off on the affidavit that got the FBI into the former president's personal residence in Mar-a-Lago. So the judge knows what precipitated this and warranted that search. And then we have to wonder, they did the search, they took a lot of documents, they left. And I'm wondering, let's say that was the provocation for him to give them the clearance to do so. And it turns out that they go to the home, don't find the documents or the smoking gun that supposedly triggered all of this. Then what?
Well, then I think there's going to be hell to pay because that would be a repetition of past investigations. We don't know if that's the case.
Right.
What I think should really have occupied the judge to push back a little is that the government was demanding until recently complete secrecy while the media was reporting all of these leaks from the government, including material no doubt in this affidavit. So I'm hoping that the Justice Department was more forthcoming. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, they're going to redact anything favorable to the president. I wouldn't be expecting anything favorable to the president. That's not how affidavits work.
Yeah.
This is a one-sided account to convince a judge to let you vacuum up virtually every document at Mar-a-Lago. So there probably weren't many sections that were complimentary towards the president.
So where does this go now? And I only ask in light of the significance that, as you've indicated, how unusual, unprecedented it is to do this and to raid a former president's home. And the present president, Joe Biden, when asked by Peter Doocy whether he was given a heads up or knew anything about it, President Biden said no, he did not. I assume that means by extension he finds out when we find out that now a redacted version or some type of a version is going to release to the public. But the fact that the President Biden seems to be hands off here or promises that he was not, vows that he was not made aware of any of this, does that stretch any credulity to you?
Well, the fact that the government's been leaking like a sieve during this entire period makes you wonder. I mean, it seems like everyone knew a great deal about what was in this affidavit. You just have to open up your morning newspaper now to find out some of the details.
And who would have leaked that information? It would have been someone from the Justice Department, right? It would be, even when we got the nuclear rumors and these unnamed sources, I mean, so they were busy leaking, even though now they're in the position of saying officially, if we had harder others, we don't want anything to get out.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're really looking for, Neil, is more information about that timeline. One of the recent letters released by NARA, the National Archives, strongly pushed back on President Trump. It suggested his team was not being cooperative. But a lot of us want to know why you had to do the raid, why you couldn't go for some type of order of injunction or a second subpoena. Did they really expect that to be refused? And if it was refused, couldn't you have then gone to a raid? I wrote a piece about how there were 4 occasions for Merrick Garland to take modest steps to assure the public that they were being measured. He didn't take those steps. This is the 5th one. We will see if he went to the department and said, look, we really do need to be more transparent. We have to recognize that there's a history here. People have doubts about our motivations, so let's be a little more transparent. That's going to be very hard with the culture of the Justice Department, I promise you, to get them to do that.
Amazing. Jonathan, thank you very much. Jonathan Turley, George Washington University law professor, Fox News contributor. Again, just to wrap this up, even though we're going to continue monitoring this, a federal judge has ordered the release of that redacted affidavit laying out the Department of Justice's evidence or rationale for searching Donald Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.